This video will be on the UN concept of responsibility to protect and how this concept was created via an anti-imperialist lens. So the socioeconomic conditions of Libya prior to 2011, that the situation in Libya in 2011 and the toppling of Gaddafi with the military coup sanctioned by the US and its allies, that is one of the prime examples of usage of this UN concept of responsibility to protect. So with some background given on that, the socioeconomic conditions of Libya prior to 2011 under Gaddafi, Muammar Gaddafi, that he was the supreme leader of Libya from 1969 to 2011 when he was toppled and assassinated by Western proxies. So the overthrow of Gaddafi and international actors that played into this, the motives for the overthrow will also be discussed, why this was an imperialist action, and how it contradicts the origins of responsibility to protect concept, Libya today, and how this is a legacy of the misuse of UN concepts. Libya, historically was a prosperous nation under Gaddafi administration, which soon met its demise following the NATO-led intervention in 2011 and imperialist usage of the UN responsibility to protect concept to legitimize this coup. So the origins of the UN Council of Responsibility to Protect was initially articulated by former Secretary General Kofi Annan, who presented his annual report to the UN General Assembly in September 1999, urging member states to collaborate in abiding by charter principles of the UN and engage in defense of human rights. In his 2000 Millennium Report, he stated, if humanitarian intervention is indeed an unacceptable assault on sovereignty, how should we respond to the Rwandan genocide from the mid-1990s, to Srebrenica, to a gross and systematic violation of human rights that offend every precept of our common humanity? Moreover, the Canadian government filed a report in 2001 titled The Responsibility to Protect through the International Commission on Intervention and State Sovereignty. This concept was partially derived from Francis Deng's concept of state sovereignty as a responsibility. This notion also reassured that sovereignty is not only a matter of protection from external forces, but also emphasizes that nations ensure the welfare of their populations, hence the prime responsibility for the protection of the people relied mainly within the state. Additionally, residual responsibility rested on the international community of states. This was activated when a particular state is clearly either unwilling or unable to fulfill its responsibility to protect or is itself the actual perpetrator of crimes or atrocities. So, given these definitions that form the codification of this concept of responsibility to protect, and the context of an anti imperialist state that served as a threat to the West and also had a large oil reserve, a large water pipelines, and Gaddafi also had multiple bank accounts, which the US backed so called rebels of this uprising in 2011. They, they raided his money supply, and NATO also bombed Libya's water reserve, and obviously Libyan oil was expropriated for usage by the West, and all of this was legitimized through the responsibility to protect and via imperialist propaganda against Gaddafi that labeled him a murderer, a terrorist, and all these other, typical buzzwords that are used in reference to anti-imperialist, to socialist leaders, to leftist leaders throughout the world, throughout the global south. And this was a prime example of that. And Gaddafi's last words when he was killed was, "What did I do to you?" And, all of these imperialist propaganda perpetrated by the West via corporate media, funded by the West, and academics that their organizations pay in order to spread these defamations against leftist leaders. All of these is what served as the so-called evidence in order to use their responsibility to protect, to legitimize these heinous crimes that were committed against Libya, not only against Gaddafi, not only the murder of Gaddafi, but also the mist that and calamity that resulted as a result of this violent coup against the nation, such as today that the slave auctions happening in public in Libya, and all of these other issues that are happening, disasters, migration issues, etc., trafficking that are resulting as a result of the destruction of this once prosperous nation that was one of the most successful nations in the African continent and under the Pan-African leftist ideology. And that's it for this video.